one interesting thing is, how is it that China, Japan, countries like this have managed to stay out of this ecosystem and build their own narrative of the history, which India or the Latin American countries or even the African countries are unable to do? And why these two countries, particularly Japan as well as China, have managed to keep their history, sanitized from the Western ideas?
So very clearly, if you look at the history of Japan or the history of China, they have controlled the foreigner very well. And by foreigner, I mean the missionaries. So they have controlled access to their country and other things very well. The Japanese threw them out. Although they went through a period of modernization, the missionaries tried to bring in their noxious ideas over there to control their minds also, away from Shintoism and Buddhism and other ideas. But the Japanese resisted that. The emperor was enlightened enough to say that this is corrupting our culture. They threw them out. So Japan was forced to open after the defeat in World War II. Only then this Americanization and other things have come in. But even then, their nationalist idea is very, very strong.
They remain very, very strong.
Yes, and they remain true to their history, their narrative. They control that. And the same thing with China. China has had a very strong identity about who they are as a people. The British have tried to colonize them through Canton, the Shanghai, and all those kind of Hong Kong, those places. They made them into drug addicts. They used opium that was grown in India was used to control those people over there. But eventually, the Chinese also have managed to control their identity. They control the narrative, and they're not going to corrupt it to suit anybody. However, in India, we have been kicked around by these five forces. And today, we don't find the willpower in the people who can change the policy to policymakers who understand these forces, these five forces I'm talking, and going and changing the narrative. That is not happening. And because that is not happening, our youth have suffered tremendously. The identity of India is corrupted so badly that nobody in India, whether it's a youth or an adult, you go and ask them, what are you as an Indian? Who are you? What are you? They are unable to answer that question. No, nobody can connect to the ancient civilization. Nobody can say, I am a proud and grateful inheritor of this civilization of my ancestors. Because we have all been deracinated. We have all been removed from Sanskrit. We have all been removed from the culture of the country. Everything has become alien for us. We have been deprogrammed to reject our ways, have a Pavlovian response. The minute somebody says Hinduism, you say communal. Where does that come from? That is the deprogramming that these five forces have done to us. So the youth has got no idea about their identity. They have no idea they've been played around. They have no idea they've been programmed, deprogrammed by the media, textbook, vested interest to react in this manner. Yes. So it requires our policymakers to come and say there is a problem today when we see universities like JNU and AMU and other such places going around and saying break up India and calling the Indian army as an occupational force. There is a reason they are products of such an education system. And it's only getting worse, sir. It's only getting worse. The youth, the very young children today also cannot connect with the culture of the country. They cannot. And this is a criminal neglect. This is a criminal neglect of our culture by the policymakers. So this is something that I feel deeply disappointed that we have not been able to change these things.
But then I think the sheet anchor of this whole mess of distortions is the Aryan invasion theory. This has been increasingly challenged even in the West. A lot of people even in the West, they're challenging this. But how does it still, continue to influence the minds of the people outside India as well as inside?
So the Aryan invasion theory, in my talks, I extensively talk about the roots of this ideology. So the colonialists, when they came to India, they had the Bible model. They believed God created the world in 4004 BC. They believed God destroyed the world, Noah's flood, in 3000 BC. They believed you cannot have a history going beyond 3000 BC. So when they came to India and they saw the Puranic accounts from the grandson of Pandavas and even earlier, they said, how is it possible Indians have such a chronology that is going against the Bible model? Bible must be true. Therefore, Indian history must be false. And so they distorted by reducing the chronology of Indian calendar. So that is the first distortions. And the linguistic people, after they saw that Latin, Sanskrit and Greek have got common roots, similarities, common roots, they wanted to address a question, who are they as a people? And to answer who they are as a people, they must say, who are the Indians? Because they speak Sanskrit, which is related to Greek and Latin. So who are they? So in order to satisfy their own understanding of their identity, they didn't want to be seen as Sanskrit descendants or Hinduism descendants. They didn't want, they wanted some distance over there. So they proposed, they meaning the Eurocentric linguistic researchers, they said the reason why these languages are related is because there was an ancestral language, Proto-Indo-European ancestral language. And by the way, that ancestor lived in Central Asia between Caspian Sea and Black Sea. And there are migrations from that place to the rest of Europe and India. That is what led to languages also migrating. That was their theory. And they constructed
But
elaborate ideas.
no Indian text talks about this migration.
None of them.
None of them.
None of them. Not a single Indian text. We have hundreds and thousands of authors. Whether you go to Lagada or Varahamira or Aryabhatta or Adi Shankara or anybody in any period of time in any geography of India, not one author is talking about these are Aryans, these are Dravidians, we are North Indians, you're South Indians, and these people came and invaded and they suppressed us. Nothing talks about that. So this is the tragedy of our country. The internal evidence of enormous numbers of literary works in India does not talk about the identity the way the British have distorted it. 200 years ago, the British and the Eurocentric people have told us this is our identity, and this is the dominant way that Indians today look at our own history. This is the sad part of it.
But then, not just the Aryan thing, they have invented the Dravidians from nowhere.
Very true, very true.
And this Dravidian is now wreaking havoc even now, after years after Britishers have left, and there's no change in the narrative, there's no counter narrative to this.
So Raka Garu, I always say this in my talks. I say the word Aryan is spurious. In the Indian context, we only know what Arya is. Arya is noble, noble person, noble qualities, noble gunas, noble qualities. Such a person is an Arya.
In fact, Mandodari calls Ravana Aryaputra.
Very true, very true. And Dushasana, who was supposed to be Kshatriya, is an Anarya. Because he disrobed Draupadi, he did not a noble act. So he's called an Anarya. So in our context, we always use the word Arya for noble qualities. Noble qualities. Max Muller was a person who brought about the idea that Aryans are a race. A spurious construct. He said that Aryans are a race, and ever since then, all these ideas have come that Aryans came to India, Northern Indians are Aryans, and they drove the Harappa people to the south, who became the Dravidians. And the word Dravidian also can be deconstructed. The word Dravida is a Sanskrit word. It denotes the people in the southern part of India. Even Adi Shankara says, I'm a Dravida Shishyu. Yes, in Saundarya Lahiri, he says that. So, like this, we have many instances where these constructs that are supposed to be race are spurious indicators. Arya is an indicator of quality, Dravida is an indicator of geography. So, that is it. However, the problem happened in, as far as Dravidians are concerned, when there was somebody called A.C. Campbell. A.C. Campbell was a Britisher who lived in Andhra. He wrote a book on Telugu grammar. So before he wrote that book on Telugu grammar, the thinking by Colebrook, by William Jones, who were other Britishers before him, they thought Sanskrit is the source of all Indian languages. That's what they thought. This man was determined to show that they were wrong. So he wrote this book on Telugu grammar, to which he invited his mentor. His mentor was Ellis White, somebody called Ellis White, to write the foreword for this book. Ellis White wrote a 40-page foreword that has come to be called Dravidian Proof. So it's come to be called Dravidian Proof. In this 40-page, he used the efforts of a Shastri that he knew in Sanskrit college. They used one of Panini's word lists, and from that word list, they tried to see the etymology, and they tried to show that there are many differences in southern and northern. For example, for the word for milk. For milk in Telugu, we say palu. And in Tamil, we say pala. And in Kannada, we say halu. In Hindi, we say doodh, and such things. So these, they said that there's no connection between doodh and pala. Because dairy is so common throughout India, right? So the words must be common. So they took words like this, where there are differences, and they emphasize them. So they also took some sentence construction where they showed that its different construction. So based on this 40-page proof, he proposed something called a Dravidian proof. This was eagerly embraced by the missionaries, especially this person Caldwell. Caldwell and G.S. Pope. G.S. Pope was one more missionary. These people embraced these ideas, and Caldwell introduced some noxious ideas. He said there's something called Aryan Brahminical religion. In a pejorative way, he used that word, and he said that they suppressed the southern Indian, who was the Dravidian, and he said the Dravidians are poor because of suppression by the the Brahminical people. And he also suggested that you can get pure Tamil by removing the Sanskrit out of the ancient works. So he introduced these noxious ideas. These ideas were eagerly embraced by EVR, and the Dravidian movement was born from there on.
మా వేకప్ ఇండియా .tv లేటెస్ట్ అప్డేట్స్ ముందుగా మీకు రావాలనుకుంటే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోండి. అలాగే పక్కనున్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ ను క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఆల్, పర్సనలైజ్డ్, నన్ అనే ఆప్షన్స్ వస్తాయి. అందులో ఆల్ అనే ఆప్షన్ పై క్లిక్ చేయండి.